Hello and welcome to episode 22 of the Live War Game Show. We were going to call it a fancy name because it's in the middle of the two. Intermission, side quest, interjection was my smart
I like
suggestion.
interjection.
But we'll just keep it numbered just to keep the sequence going nice and easily to follow. It's just myself and Stephen for this episode. It'll be a bit shorter than usual, probably not.
Probably not.
We're talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake's INTERgrade PlayStation 5 upgrade and INTERmission, which is the small expansion, couple of chapters. I didn't think it was that small myself personally, but yeah, we're gonna chat about that because we've both played it and we've both finished it at this stage. So I've been wanting to talk about it and roped Stephen into this. Before we do, we'll have a little quick catch up. We won't do a deep dive. I know Stephen's probably been playing something today that he wants to chat about, but we'll keep all of that for Thursday or Friday when you guys listen to it. Anyway, Stephen, how are you? What have you been up to?
Yeah, well, there was a sale on the PlayStation Store on the weekend, and I bought Returnal. I took the dive and bought it, and I am loving/hating it. Mostly loving it.
It's the best kind of game.
Hating the... Yeah, exactly. It is just... It's my Dark Souls fix for now until Elden Ring. I love it. It's great. I'll talk more about it on Friday, but I'm loving it. What have you been up to?
I spent most of my weekend playing Ratchet and Clank. I've 100%ed it twice and platinumed it.
Twice?
So when you finish Ratchet and Clank, so you unlock all the weapons, and then you upgrade all those weapons to max level of 5 on your first playthrough, and then you basically unlock a new game plus, and the new game plus allows you to upgrade it, buy them all, a better version, the Omega version of them all, and upgrade them to level 10. So I played through the story again, speedran it, basically, and upgraded them all. But now I'm done with that. I got the platinum trophy on that, but that's really been it. Again, I'll save chatting about that to Thursday because I know Dill is probably playing it this evening. But yeah, it was good.
Imagine we have a whole podcast crew of
they don't
PlayStations.
Exist, they don't exist though.
Yeah. It's that content creator look that we have.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, he collected it today and brought it home and set it up. So, Lord knows what he's playing. Ratchet and Clank arrived about an hour before he did, so it was handy to have both of them there, so I didn't have to make a journey across. But no, that was a good game. I got to the stage last night where I think I made the game crash though, which was kind of funny. So I ended up using so many different weapons in one fight that the game just kind of went, nah, I give up. PlayStation just gave up and stopped working for a minute, which is kind of funny, but yeah.
That was what your tweet was about, was it? Your cyberpunk tweet?
Apparently that was bait, but like, look, I was quite vocal that my experience with cyberpunk was not as bad as others, and that was probably fortunate for me because I was so hyped for the game. But I've had just as many issues in other games. Ratchet and Clank, the most recent one, where I've had game crashes or forcing a reload of a save bug or something like that. I do think it's an issue with the PlayStation 5 as opposed to the game though, because Returnal had the same when that came out. That Cyberpunk on PlayStation obviously had crash issues. But I actually think it's an issue with the PS5. But
probably the hard drive.
It could be the SSD that it's fairly new technology, so could just be a driver issue with that. But no, it's like I'm not gonna sit here complaining about it because I love both games. It's just one of those. Oh, my game crashed again. Oh well, restart it. They load so quickly that it's really not really that much of an issue.
I know this is going to be something we talk about in the remake, but the amount of times I kept forgetting to load the activity card and gave out to myself for having to wait those extra 10 seconds. I was like, for fuck's sake, I could have been in the game by now.
That needs to be mentioned about the PS5 is that activity card. If you relaunch your game from that, you're literally in game in 5 seconds.
8 seconds. It was 8 seconds.
Crazy. It's crazy quick.
button press the gameplay, 8
Yeah,
seconds.
it's
That's
insanely
insane.
quick. Yeah, it
Oh, it's
shouldn't
ridiculous.
it shouldn't exist. Anyway, we move on to Final Fantasy because we'll keep our full catch up for Thursday and our full chat on Thursday because we'll have Dale's impressions of his PS5 as well, so we can.
True, yeah.
Right, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade plus Intermission.
Well, before we start, we probably should say that we are going to keep the first half of
Yeah,
it spoiler free.
yeah,
So if you are listening and don't want spoilers, you're safe for now, and Kev will timeline it in YouTube
yeah.
below.
Hmm.
And if you're listening on Spotify, well, tough fucking shit. You're just going to have to check it somewhere else.
Yeah, I'll timestamp on YouTube when the spoilers kick in. For there'll be story spoilers. We'll have gameplay spoilers, obviously, because we're chatting about our impressions of it and the mechanics there. But specifically, story spoilers will be kept until after the big flash up happens on screen, and I'll timestamp it in the description. And that will be story spoilers for both Seven and the intermission. We won't have
Yeah.
any story spoilers before that. If we end up verging on it, we'll cut ourselves off. For the audio, skip it. You have until we start speaking about spoilers. Basically, we'll shout it. We'll say it before we start that if we're gonna be chatting spoilers, to turn it off if you don't want to hear spoilers. But the game's been out a year, so what have you been doing? So yeah, so Final Fantasy VII Remake came out just over a year ago now, but 14 months ago now, and both of us
Yeah.
absolutely loved it and everything to do with it. The gameplay stayed somewhat loyal to the original in that it is a turn-based, except it hides the turn-basedness behind kind of basic attacks to power up your gauge to use more powerful attacks, and that it kind of hides that turn-based gameplay behind it. It's active turn-based is the way I spoke about it, but that was fantastic. We won't talk about that too much. We'll focus more on INTERgrade INTERmission. I think we should probably start on INTERgrade. So INTERgrade was the next gen upgrade hidden behind a fancy name, INTERgrade, for whatever reason. So it's hidden behind a fancy name. That is the PS5 upgrade for Final Fantasy VII. I didn't play the whole thing again because I've played it 2 and a bit times already in the last year. So I kind of picked specific missions out that I wanted to play, or like part of chapters that I wanted to do, and so it added 2 different display modes. You had your performance and you had a quality one. I don't think there was an in between the way Ratchet and Clank has it, but they both added fancy textures, fancy lighting, 60 FPS, which was the huge thing. Like Final Fantasy VII, the original remake, ran at a solid 30, so it was quite a nice 30. But playing it at 60 makes all the difference. So
It's just a different game at 60.
it really is.
And that, I think, just for that alone, it's worth the price of admission. Like if you haven't played the remake at all, and your first experience is INTERgrade, you're in for such a fucking treat.
Yeah,
It is
it's a
such
gorgeous game.
yeah.
It was
like,
a pretty game
that's-
anyway. It was a good looking game anyway.
I was just gonna say, I remember it last year being so damn beautiful, and I was like, this is insane. The end of the PS4 life cycle, and we're getting these like top quality games now that look phenomenal. And then in a year, they bring out the PS5 upgrade with a serious improvement. And we'll talk about the real improvements at the end, but the Jesus, like the just in general, the character models look much better. They look cleaner. They kind of look a little bit more plasticky.
Some of them look more plasticky. Some of them look ultra realistic, but some of them do look a bit more airbrushed. Is probably they look very airbrushed.
But that, like, you just can't play it at 30. Like, for me, there was no discernible graphical difference between
No, there's not.
60 and 30. And maybe if you have a better display and you're sitting right up against it and you can see the individual pixels, maybe. But I
That
think for
sounds like a
general playback,
challenge.
you can now. It's right beside it.
Yeah, I'll have to give it a shot. But yeah, I couldn't tell much difference between performance and quality. Well, I couldn't tell much of a difference in terms of the fidelity of it. I could tell a difference between the frame rates, 100%. As soon as you play this game at 60, you can't go back to 30. It's so
Even
smooth, so smooth. Like because of the way the game's played, a lot of the, especially the physical attacks over the magic attacks, have these big arcing movements, and them at 60 FPS look phenomenal. They really do.
I like that in the menu when you're changing. I think I even said this the other day. Downloaded it in the menu when you're choosing like favorite graphics, favorite performance. They have a little chocobo with a circle running around it, and as soon as you switch that to favorite graphics, you can see the 30 frames.
Isn't
and it's
it crazy how
horrendous.
that happens though? Like,
Yeah,
it's insane the way it happens.
It's just and the fact like they have to be applauded the fact that you can do it in game instantly. It's not you're gonna have to reload anything or there's a huge delay in reloading the assets. It's just instantaneous.
It's instant, yeah.
And that they give you that little graphic just to show you like this is what you're going to experience, and you know straight away it's like no, I ain't doing that. So it's for the 60 FPS alone, I'd have paid the 20 quid.
Oh, I'd have bought the full game again, no problem. If they had told me, look, your save transfer, but you're gonna have to buy it again, no problem, no problem. I'm glad they didn't. Saying that, I'm very happy they didn't, because a lot of companies are giving those free next gen upgrades, and it's great that they are doing that. COVID probably forced that hand for a lot of companies. But and Xbox forced that hand for a lot of companies. Kudos to them. But yeah, just being back in Midgar after obviously the first time was 1997 to 2020. It was quite a long time. But going back and seeing it improved from PS4 to PS5, it looks everything looks great.
Like that jump from 97 to 2020 was mind-blowing, and I think everyone was a little bit apprehensive about how it would play. And I know after the demo I was like, I don't know if this is for me. I think they butchered it because I didn't get into their new ATB system, but I don't know how they did it. But in a year from 2020 to 2021, this is a remake of the PS4 version. This isn't just we just upped the resolution of certain things. This is a full-blown remaster of a game from last year, essentially.
Yeah, it basically is. It's a PS5 remaster. And it makes me wonder if that's why. So, Intermission, which is the episode with Yuffie, is only available on the PS5 version of the game. And it makes me wonder if that's almost like. It's frustrating for people who want to play it because they loved the game a year ago. And now a game they bought on PS4 has... I think it's the first time ever where a game released on one console and then got DLC for the next generation.
Exclusively for the next
Exclusively, yeah. So I understand the frustration there, but I almost feel like that's because this is a remaster almost. That they would have had to develop it almost for two different platforms separately, which would have taken more time, which would have then taken away resources from part 2. you heard that, yeah?
She agrees. What? Can't do that. Part 2 has to come out.
But yeah, I almost feel like that's partially the reason for it. So... But yeah, Midgar looked phenomenal a year ago, and it looks even more insane now. And smooth. Just like a lot of the boss fights in Final Fantasy do involve a lot of camera movement. So being able to do that at a nice and smooth 60 FPS, it makes it's just the 60. They could have not done everything else, the lighting and the visual and the character. They could have not done anything with that. 60 FPS by itself was worth the price tag.
Yeah, but I think as well, this probably goes back to where they are in terms of the remake or part 2's development cycle. I think the fact that INTERmission was exclusively PS5 means part 2 is
Oh,
going to be exclusively PS5.
100%. Okay, yeah, exclusively PS5 at launch. It'll probably
Yeah.
eventually also come to PC. But yeah,
Oh yeah.
part 2 is not coming to PS4. Like
No.
100% it's not coming to PS4. Just there's
And I
no
think
there's
that
no
this
chance.
was
No
their
chance.
this is their hint that it is a PS5
Yeah.
only title, because otherwise Yuffie would have come out on PS4.
Yeah.
So
Okay, well,
and
I think that's sorry.
I was just gonna say, seeing what they've done in terms of the visuals and the performance of it, I applaud them for that.
Just
boldness,
like
because
everything looked incredible. Like you were saying, the characters. Like we won't get into it just yet, but the end of intermission cutscenes, like the characters in that, like they. I know they're
Just
I
those
know
full
they're
proper cutscenes.
I know they're cutscenes, but
Yeah.
they are. I am pretty sure they are in-game engine cutscenes.
Well, I was gonna say, I think what we get in the general play of the game is the in-game engine cutscenes, and I think at the end we get the full motion videos, or the FMVs as it used to be called, and that's where they render at a higher quality because they're not using the in-game assets.
How good that all look, though. Like we won't get on spoilers just yet, but yeah, I was watching those the after mission cutscenes, just been like, holy crap, this looks good.
Yeah. We'll move away because we will end up.
Yeah,
we
move on.
Talk about it.
You mentioned that Yuffie would have been in the PS4 in this case, so that's probably the segue. So on to Yuffie. So the intermission chapters. There's 2 chapters. They're not that long, but when you're on your first playthrough, I think it took me about 10 hours to do everything. About 9 or 10 hours to do everything, and then you play it again on hard mode, and that took me another 8 or 9 hours, including the AR stuff, the virtual reality simulator stuff, the combat sims, because they were difficult. So for 20 quid, €20, like I got over 20 hours worth of playtime, and I have to say, for everything that came as part of that, the upgraded visuals were free, obviously, but the intermission stuff for 20 quid, like that, I found that it was great value for money. Just to put that out there, I know €20 for a game DLC, you expect it to be reasonably chunky. 2 chapters doesn't sound like a whole lot, but I think there was 4 or 5 boss fights in there, not including the combat sim stuff. So there was enough there for €20 to keep me satisfied. But yeah, moving on to that. So in Remake, the release of the remake, it was you were controlling Cloud for your general gameplay, but once combat started up, you could freely swap between from Cloud to Aerith to Tifa to Aerith, sorry internet, to Barret. So you had three characters that you could rotate between, and you could set them up in their different ways for magic, for whatever. And that was great. It took a bit of getting used to, especially after playing Intermission. Going to do the White's boss fight in the combat sim in the original game that was a bit of a spoiler, I apologize. But going back to having to control 3 characters at one time was very difficult. But in Intermission, and the reason it's difficult, that in Intermission you only control Yuffie. So at all times you're controlling Yuffie. You have Sonon, who is her partner, and you can direct Sonon to do certain things, but his main goal is to be a tank for Yuffie. So if you put it in WoW terms or in Final Fantasy XIV terms, he's a tank. He's there to take damage while Yuffie does all the fancy stuff. How did you feel about that, Stephen? About only getting to control Yuffie? Because I know I had my opinions. And it's probably... Yeah. It's the one part of the game or the DLC that I'd be critical of.
I think there was a reason for that, which we'll get into later on, why that design choice was made. I I think at the start I was very much like, oh, I don't, because when you go from the remake to intermission, you have that muscle memory of like,
Yeah.
I see Sonon's ATB gauge is full, I'm going to switch to him,
Yeah.
do the moves I want. But you don't. Like, the process is the same. You still switch to Sonon, but you don't control him. So you're saying, hey, you need to do this. And what I found is sometimes he's not in the ideal position to do what you want. So you might say, do twirling lunge. But he's halfway across the map. You're like, well, that was pointless. Like,
I found a
cool.
way around that, by the way, but go on.
I found a way around it too.
Yeah.
You have to synergize and it'll appear on you. And yeah. But again, it's just learning those little tips and tricks that aren't told to you.
Yeah.
So I got used to.
Sorry.
Once you get used to it, you don't
not
mind
told to you very clearly, but they are told to you. But you can
Not
skip
clearly.
past. You can skip past those pop-ups very easily, as I think you definitely found out. I got all those pop-ups.
Yeah.
I feel like you skipped past them.
Yeah, I missed one very vital one, which could have saved me a run. But anyway, I was put out at the start. I see the design choice why, but then in the general gameplay of it, it was actually fine. Like, in practice, it was fine. You just have to adjust your combat strategy slightly. So in terms of the not being able to control more than just Yuffie, yeah, off-putting at the start, but ultimately made very little difference in the end, to me anyway.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
What's your...
I do agree with that. Like, I kind of started at a peak, went to a valley, and then ended up somewhere in the middle. So when I first started, I was kind of like, "Oh, Yuffie's great to use. Oh, this movement is great." Being able to melee and then jump away and do a bit of range, then jump back in, that was great. But once you got into a more difficult fight, I was like, I fucking hate her. She's such a glass cannon. Why did she die so? Because her HP at the beginning of the game is quite low, in comparison to Cloud and Barret when you start in Final Fantasy VII Remake. Their HP is a little bit higher, so you can tank a bit more. Where I just found Yuffie was like, she had just over 2,500 HP, I think, which is quite low. Considering when you end the game, you end up with 7 or 8 when you have the HP ups on and whatever. And then as I got into it and began to learn how to synergize with Sonon, that he can take some attention for you, and learning how to control his attack. So don't direct him to do an attack just as the boss you're fighting is about to attack him, or otherwise he's going to eat all of that damage. So it's about timing you to use his ATB to be smart. I got used to it, and then once I can't think of the name of the attack where you throw the star.
Elemental ninjutsu.
The elemental ninjutsu, yeah. Once I figured out how to use that well, because you can change the element of that, which is the pop-up that I skipped, by the way. I missed the pop. I missed that. I skipped that because I knew you could change the element.
Important.
It's quite important. Like, I knew you could change the element of it, but I was like, I'd throw it, and then I'd be like, why is it not changing the element? And it's only when I actually was in the pop-up, in the combat pop-up, I was like, I changed it in here. You could have explained that to me a little bit better, game. So yeah, so you can throw a star and then use magic attacks depending, and you can change your ninjutsu, whatever, from fire to arc, from fire to thunder to wind to not poison, but to whatever the other one I've forgotten is. So you can change it around, and that was really fun to use once you got into it, and you could obliterate a lot of groups of enemies with just that. You could literally just stand there and just clean out everything. But yeah, like, the combat in the remake itself, I loved it. And it carried over well to this, and it added in a a different type of, so you, yeah, like the four main characters from the remake have their own unique playstyles, and Yuffie has her own unique play. It's kind of a mix between Tifa and Aerith, maybe.
I would have said it's probably more of a mix between Tifa and Barrett.
Yeah, that makes sense. That works too. But yeah, like she has her own unique style, and they did very well to deliver that. It's a pity you couldn't control Sonon by himself, because that could have been fun to see what that would have worked like. But he was great to have, because you could send him out.
He was needed, because, as you said, she was squishy. Like, I remember the very, 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 very mild spoilers for the first 2 minutes of the game, but like when you get to in the whatever you call it, the old factory, and there's the two dogs. Like, I died about 3 times to them.
Yeah, especially on hard. On hard, they were very difficult.
Yeah, because on normal, when you're starting, like, you don't know her mechanics. You're trying to learn that out. There's these new unblockable things that I don't remember being in the remake, and I didn't know what the fuck this red symbol was, and then your throat was clamped and you're halfway dead, and then the next one headbutts you, and you're like, okay.
That headbutt did too much damage. Straight up, that headbutt that those wolves did too much damage.
Nerf it, Bungie.
Nerf it, Bungie.
But yeah, like, I think it speaks to the game designers and the combat designers that they're able to come up with these unique styles that suit the character, but also don't break the gameplay. Like, Yuffie could have been super strong, where she stands at a distance and just spams magic, and that's what you do essentially with her. But like, she doesn't obliterate enemies. Like, it takes a while. I think her ATB goes up a little bit slower when you're doing elemental ninjutsu. You kind of have to work around her weaknesses, and you do have to get in close as well, because if you don't get in close, you can't do the synergize stuff.
Yeah, so I think that's how I would play it. I do ninjutsu until I got an ATB bar, and then synergize and use the synergy. Like, was it the attack where you kind of cannonball towards the enemy off? Sonon's
damage,
Kane, and then his ATB bar will fill up quickly because you did that, and then you do synergy, and it flowed very well.
Yeah, no, it was very good, and I'm really interested to see what they do with characters like Kate Sit, Red 13, and Vincent in part 2, because they all.
Sorry, go on. They all.
No, just
I have a question.
They all
for you,
have. Yeah, like, they all have really unique playstyles that in the original, they just do attack, magic, summon. In this, it's going to be very different. I imagine Vincent will be the same as Barrett in some way. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'd like to see how they bring those characters out through their combat.
That was something I was saving it for a bit later on in the show to ask you. Do you think we could get other intermissions before part 2 to introduce either one of those two characters? I think it's quite possible.
I think so. I think if we're looking at a 2023, like early 2023 release date for part 2.
Don't say that.
I know.
It's probably quite likely, to be fair.
Like, if we're thinking February, March 23, it's very likely we'll get one, if not two, other intermissions.
I think it's quite. I think it is quite possible.
I would love to see them do it, because I think instead of the remake having that part where you go off and unlock the extra characters, is like, these are already established.
Yeah.
You know who they are, and then you just bring them in naturally to the game, and it's not this whole like, oh, we have to tell you this backstory, and it could just be really nice. I think it could be. Yeah. I hope they do. I'd pay another 20 quid again to do it.
Oh, easily, 100%. And I think the 3 characters that we mentioned, I think one of them is quite likely to function similarly to Sonon. I think Red 13 might not be controllable in combat because, well, he's a dog. And it might be difficult to program that in. So perhaps Red 13 may function similarly to Sonon in that we direct him what to do, but we can't actually control him at all times. Potentially.
You know what? Yeah.
I hope that's not the case, because it would be fucking cool to control Red 13. But yeah.
I think that would upset a lot of people, but
it would.
Saying that,
but there's
I think that
could
make sense. There is, and I think with Kate Sit as well, like that would be. You're talking about a cat controlling a giant Moogle. That's not going to move quickly. Like that's, that might be a case of where you just issue commands. So yeah, it'd be interesting.
It'll be interesting. I
didn't think about it. I think you could be right.
It literally only like
the
light bulb went on there about 2 minutes ago as we were talking about it. I can't remember what exactly you said, but like as you said it, we were talking about not controlling him, and then the other characters that could come in as potential like other intermission style things. Yeah, it just kind of went bing. That's potential. It was like bing. But yeah, I think it's definitely interesting to see if we are going to get other ones. Depending on how far along part 2 is, it wouldn't surprise me all that much. It really wouldn't.
Yeah.
What did you think about like the story that was told and the way it was told? I thought it was quite interesting that the whole setup of Intermission, the 2 Yuffie chapters, is that it's not a sequel to part 1. It's kind of going along at the exact same time as some of the events of the remake part 1. So there's a part where you go and you bomb the second. What you call it?
Probably shouldn't go into this.
Yeah, that's true. But about halfway, about 60% through remake, Yuffie arrives into the slums and starts going about her mission, and it kind of goes alongside it, and then they kind of finish up at roughly pretty much the same time. So I liked it. I thought it was good what they did. Thought there was good. There was good character development there. That it introduced it to a new character because it came out 24 years ago, but it reintroduced you to a new character and kind of developed their backstory and what they stand for and what their kind of touched on what their goals are, other than to just collect all the materia in the world. And it also developed more backstory for other characters in it. I won't name any names just yet, but it developed more story for some of the people working for Shinra. So I thought it was quite. It expanded on it without being a full new title.
Yeah, I'm torn on this because I think the story itself was inconsequential. There was nothing of importance. There was nothing that really, to me, that really kind of made it feel like this story needed to be told. Now there are some characters,
yes,
that got good backstories or were reintroduced or expanded upon, and I think that stuff they're obviously trying to back end in now so that when they have their inevitable appearance in part 2, they don't have to go, oh, here's a 5-minute story explanation.
Here's a 5-minute flashback sequence that,
yeah. I think they could have done with more of that in this, because I think with the characters we're thinking of, they were literally just out of nowhere, and for who they are and where they come from, it doesn't really tie in with anything that's happened. So it's just very artificial out there. It's like there's this thing, there's this, that, so on. And I think without the background knowledge, you can be a little bit like, why? What's going on? Why is all this happening? So the story of Intermission from chapters 1 and chapter 2, it to me wasn't really great. I actually thought it was probably quite weak.
It was quite cheesy.
But the character Yuffie is quite cheesy. Yes. I know she's a 16-year-old. Jesus Christ. I was like, I remember why I gave up teaching.
She's very eager to impress.
Eager and has a huge ego that she should not have at that age. But the story itself is very weak, but the characters was definitely the strongest point. Yeah. Like even Yuffie as a character, even though she was annoying, the way that they interwove her backstory and Wu Tai's backstory and why she's doing what she's doing and how all that links up with Shinra was great. All that was great. The actual story of why Yuffie's there and what she's doing, I was like, this is actually shite, in my opinion.
I thought it was good that they tied a lot of that Wu Tai stuff in, because it's not really developed upon in Remake Part 1. So actually giving us Wu Tai's
side of
it, their motivations, it kind of filled in some blanks there. We get into more of the spoiler stuff a little later on, but it does all come to a head fairly with familiar characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and explains where certain characters were during certain times.
Yeah, I think,
and also raises a lot more questions than it did answer. By the way.
Yeah,
it kind of it hints at certain things, but doesn't explicitly say this is the way it is. It kind of says it could be this way.
Yeah, I think the linear story was very weak, but what comes out of it is its strength, and for that alone, it is worth the price of admission. But if you go in thinking, oh, if the linear narration from chapter 1 to chapter 2 is all you're interested in, you're going to come away disappointed. Mm-hmm.
I thought it was paced very well, though. I enjoyed the pacing of it. Like, the only thing that kind of broke up the story was Fort Condor, which I enjoyed. Fort Condor, as basic as it was. It was, to put quite simply, if the only 3 elements in Pokemon were fire, grass, water, that's what Fort Condor was. If it was Charmander v Squirtle v Bulbasaur the whole way through, that's what Fort Condor is. It's a bit deeper than that, in that you have ones that will attack troops, ones that will attack the tower. I'm not going to give a breakdown of what Fort Condor is and whatever, but it's a mini game in it where you go and you fight different characters, but once you're done everything in that, there's not really much point to do it. But taking that away, because you don't have to play it, you can completely skip it. No. I do think that it was paced quite well from start to finish, and I think that's where some people struggled with Final Fantasy VII Remake, was the pacing of it. I don't think it was paced badly, but it was like it threw you in the deep end and then kind of tailed off and gave you story, then did a bit more intense stuff, then more story, then a lot of story, and then it kind of picks up and then it's full speed ahead for the last 6 or 7 chapters. But there's a lot of story filler. I wouldn't even say filler story, because that's not fair, but it does fill in a lot of story in it, and the pacing, it can be quite slow paced sometimes. But I thought this was paced quite well.
Yeah, and I think it being so short helped.
Yeah. However, I don't want everything to be that short from now on. I want, like, I think I put about 100 hours into the remake. Don't ask me how, but I put about 100 hours into the remake. I put about 20 hours into this, 22 hours into this. So I would very much like to put 100 hours in again, please. Thank you very much.
To be honest, I think the length of episode Yuffie is probably what I would like the length of a chapter in the remake part 2 to be. Like, I don't think each chapter in the for me each chapter in the room would be like half a chapter. Is what I would like
the
in terms of,
remake.
yeah.
Yeah, some of them
I
are
think
quite short.
if you had 10 of those linked chapters with the side quests, and you could have your mini games, but like it told that sort of story sequence in each chapter, I think that's ideal, because it starts off with a little bit of a lackadaisy type stuff, and then it picks up and then it ramps up. And if that was just your progression for each chapter, I think it'd be fine, rather than the chapter 9 of pure side quests.
But you know what? I didn't mind chapter 9 because it was all the wall market stuff. I think it was the chapter. I think it was chapter 7, where
7 in
where it was all. Yeah, it was
Eric's house.
all. Yeah, I didn't want to lose spoilers, but yeah, when you're in at Eric's house, I could live without that. Thanks. Yeah, and I think everyone could. I think that was like even other reviews that I did watch of it. It was.
Yeah, gave out about that. Yeah.
Can we not have the fetch quests, please? Thanks very much, Square.
Yeah. So then, in terms of the...
Oh, I just got a spasm. Oh, that really hurt. Whatever way I leaned down, I just felt boom, right up. Ow, I'm alright. Continue.
That's Square giving out to you. What did you think of the music in episode Yuffie?
So that really, really hurt actually. The music carried on strong from the original remake, which the soundtrack is absolutely beautiful. I could listen to any part of that soundtrack and pretty much tell you what part of the game it's from, because when I listen to that through, I can visualize where it is.
Yeah.
I thought the soundtrack for this was equally as excellent. Some of the stuff was. What was it? The turtle, the happy turtle.
Yeah, the happy turtle, the metal version.
Apart from that, the soundtrack was great because that got stuck in my head for days. And I think the first time it plays through your controller, I was like, "What the f is this?" Yeah, and it had multiple
I forgot that
versions.
was a thing.
Yeah,
I was like, "What's going on?"
Because it had multiple versions as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Happy Turtle is a bar, is a tavern, whatever you want to call it, and it has a very catchy theme song that you're completing a fetch quest, we call it as it is, but
what's in my head now?
Yeah. Happy Turtle. Anyway, yeah, no, the soundtrack's great. Like, I actually forgot about this, and thank you for giving me time to come back to it. So quite recently we did a podcast on our favorite songs from video games, and I actually have a new one to put in there, and that is the one from
the Happy Turtle.
The Happy Turtle, no, from the final boss fight of the second chapter. I won't spoil anybody, don't worry, we haven't got to that point.
Yeah.
The soundtrack was, it was like, it started off as a piano and then it ramped up, but it was it was a Bloodborne song. It really was. It reminded me of something from a From Software game, and it was so sinister and dark. And it also reminded me of was it the end of season 1 of the Umbrella Academy? For some reason, it reminded me of that.
Oh yeah.
Just, I know she plays a violin, but it was just that how dark it is, how sinister it is. Yeah, it was great. Or the intro to a classic Avenged Sevenfold song.
It's Sevenfold. Yeah. There we go.
It was great. That song by itself, like I failed that boss fight a couple times just to hear the song again. Apparently.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the soundtrack is great. what I think they really fucked up on, I don't know if that was just me or the game, but the audio mixing was atrocious. Like, I had to put the music right down because I could not hear the characters talk.
No, I didn't
The
have
music
that.
was just, for me, the music was just so overpowering. I think I put it to 3 or something,
Wow.
and I even had to put the sound effects volumes down. It was so bad on my end.
I didn't have that issue at all. I put the sound. It
Really?
was very loud. Everything
Yeah.
was very loud. So I brought it all back to like 7 or 8. But
You put her down to 7 or 8, can you?
no, I didn't have that issue. I wonder if that was something to do with your TV,
Okay.
maybe. You had to.
Well, I
don't know.
use it on the TV and then I use it on my monitor. So like, same with
weird.
both.
Weird.
Yeah.
I didn't notice it. I'll have to go back and check it. I didn't have that issue, or maybe I already had the audio turned down and I just didn't realize it.
Yeah.
But that's also
It was-
potential.
Oh, because you actually didn't you save your settings from the PS4 version
So,
and do that before you
When I
played it?
when I started playing episode Yuffie, so you can transfer your save over, but you can't transfer your in-game settings over. So I updated it on my PS4, logged in, and checked my settings, took a picture on my phone of what my previous settings were, and then swapped over to the PS5 and made sure I had all the same settings. And I did.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe that was it.
Potentially.
Yeah. So, is there anything else we can talk about spoiler free, or are we?
Not particularly without getting too spoiler heavy. I did like the setup of it all. I liked that, again, in chapter 2, while the original team in 7 are doing their thing, Yuffie and Sonon are very close by,
Yeah.
unbeknownst to each other, that carrying out their missions. So I thought that was kind of cool. But no, apart from that, I don't really think there's a whole lot that we can touch on without talking spoilers, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so I suppose
before we get into spoilers, just to wrap it up, did you enjoy it and would you recommend it?
I was just gonna say before we move on,
Yeah.
we should give a spoiler-free recommendation. Yeah, look, I said it before. Final Fantasy VII is my favorite game. The remake only made that passion stronger. Episode Yuffie, while I can see some of the flaws, I enjoyed it from start to finish. I didn't want to put it down. Sad that it ended, but it's funny because I don't have that strong compulsion to go back and play it on hard mode. I started it and I got to chapter 2, but like with the remake, I just don't have a strong tendency to want to play it on hard mode. So I'm kind of missing out on some of the fun of the game. But I definitely
You know
would
what I will
recommend it
say
if you're-
though, I will come in on the hard mode stuff. I think hard mode is less fun, I guess is the right way to put it, because like the difference between hard mode and normal mode. So you have to complete normal mode to unlock it on hard mode. Just so Dylan's aware of that. We're not going to give him shit for playing it on normal. But the difference between hard mode isn't the difficulty of the fights. It's the management of MP. It's the management of your magic power and your ability powers. So it's making sure that you always have enough for what's coming ahead. So that if you have a boss fight in the middle of the chapter, you just can't like spam all your abilities and end up with no move power left. Because you've got a boss fight coming down the line that you know is coming. And if you don't have anything to take it on, you're not going to be able to do it. So I think that the big difference between normal and hard mode, and it's the same in episode Yuffie, by the way, is that it's about the management of resources, and that can take the fun out of it.
And I think that's why I don't enjoy doing the hard mode, because if it was just a challenge of the boss fights or the fights in general, I'd be probably more up for it because I enjoy the combat. But when you remove the ability to use items, even like the fact
That too, you can't actually use heals at all.
Yeah,
In or
like
out of
the fact that
combat.
you can, Yeah, like if you could use it out of combat,
Yeah.
fine, but you can't. So it does look fun. But anyway, do I recommend it? Yes, absolutely. If you have Final Fantasy VII Remake,
Yeah.
if you played it and you enjoyed it and you have PS5, you owe yourself to go buy this. It's 20 quid. That's all.
I fully agree.
Go play it. Go enjoy
Yeah.
it.
If you enjoyed and completed it on PS4, the remake, and you own it PS5, it's 20 quid, 20 euros. Like that's probably £17 sterling, probably $20 because we get shafted on that. But for the price tag, it's more than worth it. If you loved the first one and you enjoy the universe, yes. If you haven't played the remake, go play the remake. Like, even if you're not into Final Fantasy, even if you don't enjoy any Final Fantasy, it is the quality of this remake is so high that it's anybody can enjoy it. I imagine as long as you can get the grips with the combat and read up on how the combat works, so you're not just been thrown into the deep end. It is such a well polished game with such a, I wouldn't say a unique combat system, but it's a very different take on that style of combat, and I can see a lot of games borrowing from it because it makes turn-based combat fun in a way that it hasn't changed in a long time in a lot of games. The likes of Pokemon is still very stuck in that style of combat, whereas this takes that turn-based combat and puts a totally fresh spin on it. So yeah, 100%. If you haven't played the remake, play the remake. If you haven't played Intermission and you played the remake, what's taking you so long?
PS5 probably.
Or that, just that. I know. So I was chatting to Viper, straight to Viper about it, and I was like, oh, I want to talk to someone about this game. No one's finished. Steven's delayed. No one's finished it. And he went, I've watched a stream of it, so I know what happens. I was like, that'll do. So because he hasn't taken the plunge to buy a PS5 yet, because I think he's kind of waiting for there to be more to play on it, which is absolutely fair, by the way. I think Ratchet and Clank and Returnal and Demon Souls are the big sellers at the moment, but yeah, I think he's holding off for now to buy a PS5, which is fair enough. So he watched the stream of it and so he knew what happened. He was full of questions about where I think it's going, and I think that's probably where we will jump over to discussing with spoilers. You got 53 minutes. You got 53 minutes of us speaking of non-spoilers, so audio only. From here onwards, it's going to be spoiler talk for both Final Fantasy VII Remake and Intermission. For YouTube people, you would have seen it flash in front of your screen. So, spoilers. Where do we start? Do you want to start with the remake, or do we want to start with...
Sorry, you because
let's go straight in. Those cutscenes. Yeah, those cutscenes. So we couldn't really chat about it too deep without spoiling it. The characters. So the original team of Aerith, Tifa, Cloud, Barrett, and Red 13. They looked incredible. Like, and not everything like about Barrett. Yeah.
Barrett looks super real. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
How good his facial hair looks.
Yeah, like Barrett looks insane. Like I still can't get over how good Barrett actually looks.
Yeah.
In
like the rest of them look really good in the upgrade, but Barrett is the one that looks most human. Like Cloud and Tifa and Aerith have that airbrush quality that you were talking about.
It's that big-eyed, airbrushed, attractive quality that they go for, where Barrett looks real.
Yeah. It's so good coming from where episode Yuffie ends to then going back to the original team and seeing them it's not even like they're going, oh, we'll just go back and do a couple of the cutscenes we've already done. This is new story content. This is them walking to Calm, which, if anyone in Final Fantasy VII knows, that's where that is. This is the first city or village that you encounter outside of Midgar. And it literally picks up straight after the final battle and where they end up. And not only that, then we get new story content
For
with
Zack.
another character that has no fucking right to be there. And I was not expecting any of this stuff going into intermission.
Yeah. No, I wasn't either. Like, I'd stayed spoiler free, and I was like, we've seen. So when you're playing through the game, you meet Jesse, and you play battle at Fort Condor against Wedge and Jesse, and you meet these characters, and you see Tifa and Barrett coming back from that mission where it's the second reactor bombing. Kev remembered what the word reactor is, by the way. So, and it's where Cloud has gone missing, and where he's obviously fallen down, and he's with Aerith now for a while. And that's where Yuffie arrives in, so it really shows the two stories run parallel to each other. So you meet all these characters, but I wasn't expecting to get it, like, once that cutscene. So at the end of the game, we'll talk about what happens in the story, but Yuffie runs out of Shinra building, and the big explosion happens where the plate has come down. This is full spoilers for Final Fantasy Remake, by the way. The plates come down on Sector 7 slums, and she's crying, whatever. And then you see her, she's left Midgar because she's searching for whatever, and she's with her Chocobo, which, by the way, the Chocobo also looked amazing.
Yep.
And then I was just like, oh, that's going to be it. I was expecting credits to roll. And then it doesn't. It's what jumps to a cutscene of the main team talking. They're traveling, they're leaving Midgar, as you're saying, where they're going. And they're chatting away. And so, yeah, you get a ton of extra story content there. It's insane. I was not expecting it. And then, obviously, after that, it jumps back to Zack arriving in the slums near Aerith's house to the church. Which is super awkward, by the way. He's like, I'm back! And people are injured. So I wasn't expecting the first cutscene. And then the jump to Zack. No, I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't. Also, and then there was Zack also looked amazing, by the way.
Yeah. All the, like, once they moved from the episode Yuffie cutscene, like, of her in the Chocobo, it's clear they've gone to the remake part 2 section of things, and that's where you see that huge jump in quality. And like, it's a night and day difference. Like, episode Yuffie is a night and day difference from the PS4 remake, and then the part 2 stuff is a night and day difference to the PS5 upgrade. You're like, holy fuck, how many jumps are they going to make? And obviously that is the cinematic cutscenes that we're going to get, or that's not what the gameplay will look like. But Jesus Christ, it's the same. Like, if anyone has played the original Final Fantasy VII, the FMVs you get where you see the polygons normally on the world map and in battle screens, they're a bit cooler. But like, the character models you get in the FMVs, it's that jump in quality from like, this is a pretty game to holy fuck, this is a really pretty game. And then we got a third cutscene at the end as well, which happens just outside of Calm, where you get a bit of rain. Or no, yeah, they're on the
rain.
They get off in the first cutscene. They get a pickup off the Chocobo Bill, and he brings them to outside Calm, and then it starts raining, and they go in, and that's where it ends. But it's just wasn't expecting it, and then to see the visual quality is unbelievable.
I'm bringing up the thing of Barrett now in 2 seconds. Just give me a sec. I'm bringing it up just to show it, because Barrett just looks absolutely insane.
And by the way, Kev spoiled a lot of this shit on me before.
No, I didn't. I spoiled Weiss.
2 things. You spoiled Weiss, and you spoiled Barrett at the end. You're like, look how good Barrett looks. I'm like,
there he is. There. I've just put. Barrett is currently on screen above our faces for a second. I just think that's a screenshot that's been sent through WhatsApp and that's been uploaded to Twitter. So that's been compressed the hell out of it. You can still see the individual hairs on his face, the individual hairs in his beard. It's just considering what this game originally looked like on the PS1 to this, like,
Yeah.
gaming has just come so far so quickly. It's insane. But yeah, I did spoil some little bits of it, and I do apologize. I was just very excited.
It's okay. I forgive you. To be fair,
I thought you knew about Weiss in my defense. I thought you knew about that fight.
no.
So Weiss, by the way, you unlock by playing episode Yuffie, you unlock the Weiss boss fight, but you don't unlock it for episode Yuffie. It unlocks in the main game, which kind of blew my mind. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I've just played this,
Which
and
is
now I
also
unlock something for
weird.
it. It's weird, but it's like, pretty great that they did it because it actually added in
Yeah.
an extra bit of dialogue and an extra cutscene as well.
Oh, I probably should go do that soon. I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, so when you launch up episode or remake chapter 17 or whatever it is, it gives you a cutscene. Basically, he's like, come fight me, bitches. And then Chadley has an extra line of dialogue. Yeah. So the
Go on.
Sorry, no, go on. You're gonna say that's what?
No, I was gonna say that's kind of the big thing that happens in episode Yuffie. Really, is the reveal of the brothers Vice and
Nero.
Jesus, I don't know why his name's gone for me.
And that's what
that is
Nero.
probably the only.
Just to go to it, the soundtrack for the Nero boss fight. So it's split into 3 parts. For part 2 and 3 of that fight, the soundtrack is it's so good, so good. Sorry, go on.
No, I was gonna say that's probably for me. That was where episode Yuffie started to kind of shine a little bit more. The rest of it was all right, and ended. Yeah, that ending though, like, and this is why I think Square took the design choice not to make Sonon a playable character.
Yeah, it makes
full spoilers.
It makes sense. Yeah, he gets killed at the end of it. It makes sense that he wasn't playable
because he's not in the main game at all. So I know in the remake we're getting this weird time shift type thing. We're in a parallel reality or something.
Yeah.
So he could feasibly be there. But I think it makes sense not to have him as Yuffie's main party going into meeting the rest of them. So he had to die, and I think because of that, the design choice was made not to make him a playable character.
Did he die? Or is there some other shenanigans going on there with Nero?
There's absolutely some other shenanigans going on there. Yeah.
And I have a feeling that whatever is going on there might blow people's minds from 24 years ago.
Well, Nero was only in Dirge of Cerebus, so that was 2007. Which is why, going back to an earlier point I made, I think the brothers' introduction and the underground, or whatever it's called again.
The underground.
Yeah, the underground. I think bringing them in kind of abstractly without any justification or what's going on is a little bit like, sure, if these were here, why weren't they in the original? Like, the main crew did fucking way more than what Yuffie's doing, and they didn't bring out the big guns. So it's a little bit of like, why is that not there? And I thought maybe when they brought...
kind of did bring out the big gun.
Da big gun, yeah. But they didn't bring out the ultimate gun in the end. But I thought they were going to then bring in Vincent, because he's quite linked in with Nero and Vice. So it makes me wonder, have they changed the story to that, or are we getting that in another intermission type DLC where we get Vincent's side from earlier in his life, not the
I think it makes sense. I think it's quite possible.
I think it'd be great, because then you could explore that side of Shinra from... I won't go into too much about it, but from Vincent's side, which would be really cool. But yeah, I felt like it was just brought in a little bit heavy-handed, I guess.
That's fair enough.
but they were cool. Like the boss fight was fantastic.
The Vice boss fight's quite difficult. You haven't
Yeah.
done it yet, but my god, I was beating my head against that wall for a couple of hours. It was very difficult. I'll be dead honest, it was one of the most difficult fights I've done in any game. The Nero boss fight was also a fantastic fight and really took power of that 60 FPS and the advanced graphic stuff. It looked incredible. There's also the fight in the middle of all that. So when you're going through Shinra building, you go through Charlotte's little... Charlotte. I'm going to explain why I said that in a second.
Because you think she's a harlot, don't you?
No, it's not. It's nothing to do. Scarlet. She reminds me of Charlotte Flair from WWE.
Okay.
They're very similar. So yeah, Scarlet, not Charlotte. Someone will get a giggle out of that. You're currently Googling.
I have to look up who Charlotte Flair is now because. Oh yeah, I see it.
It's very. If they were to do a live action version of it, there's your Scarlet. But that boss fight was also quite cool, where she's fighting in what's her mech called?
Tank thingy. Yeah, the in the Shinra.
It's a big mech anyway, that she's in.
That's it's called the Smoker or something. Yeah, like
it's called something.
Things. Yeah, she's in a big smoker thingy.
It is called Crimson Mare. I knew it was a color in there. I was thinking ruby.
I wasn't going to remember that.
Crimson Mare. So that's quite a good boss fight as well. Spoilers. The way to do it is focus all your damage on Scarlet, take her out, and the rest is simple. That was quite good boss fight. So there was quite a few boss fights in there. You have the centipede.
Centipedes.
You had the centipede. You had Nero. Sorry.
You had the ostrich.
Oh, that was like a mini. That was kind of a mini boss. I wouldn't call that a boss, would you?
Well, I'm boss and mini boss. Yeah,
mini boss. You had the centipede, you had Scarlet, and you had Nero, and then you obviously had Ramo, and then Vice, and then you had Pride and Joy Mark 0.5, which was not enjoyable.
I've heard that was difficult. Yeah.
Get behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was good. So there was quite a good bit there. It's all about them cutscenes.
Yeah, I think really without those cutscenes at the very end, it's a serviceable DLC. You go, oh yeah, like to me, I pay €20 for the upgrades. The DLC was fair. Extra.
Yeah, that's a fair way of looking at it. I think it was quite a smart way of doing it. That's like, here's the thing, but here's a bit of DLC that we can charge you for.
Yeah.
Like,
but then they give you loads extra. Yeah. Like
loads of story.
Yeah, loads of story after the story itself.
Yes.
Yeah. And that was really cool because it just gets you more hyped for part 2.
It does. Now, that's why I haven't really had that full-on discussion with you yet, but I mentioned to you that I thought part 2 might not be as far away as we fear because of how much is there in those cutscenes. They clearly have the assets. I know it's a cutscene, but the assets are clearly there. Potential, possible that I think early 2023 is probably a good guess. But
I reckon we're getting holiday 22, early 23 is the probable release date.
Depending on if we get another intermission style expansion, the part 1.
If we get another one, it's 2023.
Yeah, that's fair. I would have always said 2023 anyway. It just seeing everything there kind of raises my hopes. But on the flip side of that, everything looks so good that they are clearly treating this with a lot of care.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see what format part 2 is. Will it be more open world than part 1? In the style of Final Fantasy 15-ish? Not as big, but it's possible.
Yeah, maybe we get just the continent of Midgar, so continent 1, and then maybe in the next remake part 3 we'll get continents 2 and 3. Because they can be quite short. There's not a lot in them. Continent 1 is quite big. So maybe that's kind of the route they're going. Maybe they'll make that open world and you can go around once you unlock all the areas. Look, we don't know. Like this is new for them. It's new for us. We could theorize what we want to see. Like I'd love to see fully open world, even if it is just continent 1. I'd love that. Will we? Who knows? Maybe the episodic structure and the linear nature of the thing makes it easier for them to develop, which is why we're getting high quality stuff.
I hope we don't get a bunch of intermission style drops though. That's my one worry, is that they break it up into really short chapters and just drop them every 6 months or so. I think that would piss off a lot of people. So hopefully part 2 is a big one. Because part 2 should theoretically be the biggest part of this game. Of all of it.
It depends on what they do. Like,
yeah, and where they cut it.
No, like if they end up focusing on the Wutai stuff a good bit, I could see them cutting it off possibly before you go to continent 2, which is where is that? Yeah. I could see them cutting it off before actually, you know what? I see them cutting it off just after Temple of the Ancients. That's where I see them cutting it off. Or not the city of the Ancients. There. I think after that big thing, that's where we're going to cut it off.
What big thing, Stephen?
Oh, Aerith dying. Breaking our hearts.
Over and over again. Just to say it explicitly. That big thing. Yeah, I think that's probably... If it is a full drop of a game, I think that probably makes sense.
I think that's a good point to stop it. And look, maybe with the way things are going, with Zack back, maybe we won't get Aerith killed this time. Maybe there is a way to stop it because the timeline is fucked and we need Aerith this time to save it. I still see them killing her. I'm just trying to live in hope that they won't.
Yeah, they will. So I think that's a good place to bring this in. This is a question that Serrate Viper actually asked me. I'll read out exactly what the question was. So he asked straight out. Sorry. He says, then there's the question of which timeline she is in. Is she in Cloud's timeline or is she in Zack's timeline? Because I think Cloud and Zack were obviously originally from different timelines, whether they're now in the same one or if they're still in different ones, or Cloud is in Zack's and Zack is in Cloud's. Like, which one do you think Yuffie is going to be in?
To me, it's very clear that Zack is in Cloud's timeline, as is Aerith. And the reason I say that is because if you look at the...
So you think they're all in the same timeline?
I think they're all in the same timeline.
With two Buster Swords?
Yeah, because I think Zack has come from his timeline with the sword. So I think what's happened here is this is before Zack dies. And when Zack dies, Cloud finds him and Zack gives him the Buster Sword. So this is when he's defending Cloud, but hasn't died. So he's obviously been successful, I think, is where they're going with this.
Or Cloud died in that timeline, and they just swapped
Quite
places.
possibly, maybe. Yeah, look, maybe that's what happened in Zach's timeline, and that's why he's there now. But I think Zach is in Cloud's timeline because if you look at the NPCs in the Sector 7, in the Sector 5 church, you'll see they're the same ones that you encounter in the opening parts of Midgar where you find Eris. There's like the guy with the suit, and there's a few others who are within the same sector area. So I don't think it's them reusing assets. I think they're the same people. So to me, it's clear that Zach has come to Cloud's timeline.
I think that's clear.
Now,
I think I agree with you on that. I do think Zach has come to Cloud and Eret's timeline from. Yeah, I agree with that much.
Mm-hmm. So whether Cloud has died in Zach's timeline, can't answer. That's obviously something they're going to bring in. The Eret question is an interesting one because it's clear to me that she's living in the current timeline, which is Cloud's one, which means because I think she made reference to a soldier that she knew before.
She has, and
so
it was quite clearly Zach.
Oh, it is Zach. Yeah. So it's very clear that Zach has died in that timeline because that's what happened. So we're up until the final boss fight of the remake. We are living within a pseudo similar timeline of the original game, which now has broken into something else, which is why we have Zach. So Cloud and Eret are in the current Cloud timeline, and Zach has been brought forward.
I think up until the final boss fight of the remake, I agree with you that yes, they are obviously in their timeline. Zach, after that, comes to that timeline. The only part I'm not sure on is if Cloud, Aerith, and Co are still in that same timeline, or if they went to Zach's timeline, or if they're in just a new timeline by themselves, in that's separate to that. I'm not 100% sure.
So I would reckon through the laws of wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff that
we need Doctor Who for all this.
I'm a doctor. Who knows? I do think
I'm a doctor. Who knows? Accidental pun.
My reading of the situation is that we have now created a new timeline.
Yeah.
So ignore Zach for a moment. We've created a timeline where we shouldn't have fought Sephiroth. We've broken the chains of fate. And now we are in a new timeline where the future is unwritten.
Mm-hmm.
In parallel to that, Zach has been brought from the past into the present, where he has no right being in, which now creates a paradox that has to be resolved at some stage.
Yes.
So I think we're in a new timeline. We're not in the old timeline. We're not in a past timeline. I think we're in a brand new one that has yet to be written. And we have a paradox in Zach being there that needs to be resolved.
I think that all makes a lot of sense. I think
whether they do it or not now.
Well, yeah, but I think that all makes a lot of sense to me, and I think that will be where I would be leaning with my thinking as well.
I think so. I think it would be a serious bait and switch to introduce Zach, but have it in
and do nothing with him.
But to put it in the previous timeline, if they're basically going, "Oh, this is just Crisis Core now. We're just showing you past stuff," like. This does actually happen in Crisis Core. There is a part where he goes back from a mission and goes to the slums to find Eret, but he doesn't see people in need the way that it is there. So they could be trying to fuck with us and doing the past timeline has also changed now. And I think if they did that, that'd be a serious misstep. I'd be really annoyed with them if they did that. I think they should bring Zach into the present, have that paradox, and then resolve it with potentially him dying. Or something. Maybe he's the one who reveals to Cloud that Cloud isn't himself. Because all of Cloud's memories are Zach's memories that he's gotten from Mako poisoning. And to actually see Zach and have that kind of conflict with himself. I think that's where they could bring that in. That'd be really cool then, and have it so that with the two of them in the one timeline, it makes Cloud weaker or Zack weaker, and under together they won't be able to fight Sephiroth, so one of them has to be resolved. Stuff like that could be really cool to do. If they did a bait and switch, I'll be pissed.
And it still goes back to the line at the end of the remake part 1, in 7 seconds. That line by Sephiroth. Yeah. So
Use 7 seconds to change the world or something.
Yeah. If something like 7 seconds till the end of the world, whatever, what would you do with it? Something along those lines.
Yeah.
So,
So back to Yuffie, I guess. Spoilers again. What did you like? I guess what was the most fascinating part for you in episode Yuffie?
apart from the cutscenes at the end.
Apart from the cutscenes.
Probably the Nero fight. The Nero, not necessarily the Nero fight, but setting up of Nero and where that could go. Especially the way it ends with. It was a whole Rise of Iron thing where Saladin standing outside the vault and they closed the vault and the doors are closing. But it reminded me of that. But I think seeing like Nero literally lift him up and pull him back into the smoke, I found that quite intriguing. I think that's gonna go somewhere down the line. Are we gonna have to fight Sonon in some form as Yuffie at some point potentially?
I'd say so.
The whole Nero thing was quite. I found the Nero and Vice stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with that.
Yeah.
That was the whole point of this. Like in reality, it was here's Yuffie. Yeah, you know about Yuffie. We had Yuffie in Final Fantasy VII. You know about her. Here's some background story so that when we bring her in, we don't have to go back on that. And here's this other stuff that we're gonna bring back in later on as well. So yeah, I think the whole point of it wasn't just that it was to introduce these characters, so that we have a reference for them for when they come along later on. Yeah.
What I found really interesting actually was
There was something else actually,
the marked men that they had, or robed men as they call them, and you see them at the very beginning with their numbers. But what really struck me was one of them says reunion, and the other one says Genova. And I don't think they said those in the remake, or I don't remember them saying them. But
I can't recall.
I can't recall, but I remember when I saw it, like, oh, they're really they're explicitly calling out these two things now, and I'm finding it interesting that they're bringing that stuff in now. I really want that to go somewhere with certain characters, and I hope it does. So we'll see now. It'll be interesting.
When I hear that word reunion, it just throws me back to that reveal trailer of the remake. Like, the reunion is at hand. Yeah, it just throws me back, and then all I can see is this guy up on his chair getting all excited.
They didn't.
No. They did. How did they? You madmen or something?
Yeah, you actually did it.
You actually like, don't be a movie. Meanwhile, like I thought the female co-host of that was just kind of like, what's going on?
What's wrong with these two?
What is up with these people? Yeah, it was great. They just throws the chair. It's great. Great. I found there was also the conversation between, was it Heisinger? Heisinger? I can't remember. Yeah, Heidinger, yeah, and old man.
President Shinra.
Yeah, President, and I think Rufus there.
No,
it wasn't Rufus. Yeah, sorry, it wasn't Rufus. Yeah, so that conversation, I can't remember how it went exactly, but that was quite intriguing as well.
you've played it, so you know who Sang is, don't you?
Refresh my memory.
Do you want me to? Because it
Yeah,
is
yeah,
a
refresh
massive
my memory. Yeah,
spoiler.
refresh my memory.
Anyway, massive spoiler for anyone who hasn't played it. Sang, who is the leader of the Turks, is the person who controls Katesset.
Hmm.
And he's the one who ultimately leads you to the Temple of the Ancients to bring about the black materia and give it to Sephiroth. And he ultimately has a change of heart because he is actually a good person underneath it all, but just works for the shitty corporation. And that comes out in this as well because when he hears he's in charge of civilian operations, when he hears of dropping the Sector 7 plate, he's like, no, I'm not into this. And that's what that conversation you're on about was. And they were like, you're basically in the wrong corporation if you're not willing to make this sacrifice type thing.
Hmm.
So it's good to be bringing him in now. And so I think he probably was in the remake because we had Reno and Rude.
I'm pretty sure he was.
I think they may have just mentioned his name. They would minus.
99%. No, I'm 99% sure he appeared in a cutscene.
I think he does when they're taking Eris. I think he appears. He
Maybe
should
that's
be
what it
there for that.
was. Yeah,
He was in the
I
helicopter.
think that's yeah. It's the helicopter. I think you're right. I think you're right.
I think that's when he comes in. But that's who that is. Director saying. Yeah, I think all that Shinra stuff is cool. The way they've handled it, even in just the remake, it's awesome. I love it.
I want to go watch
Yeah,
that reveal trailer now again, and the reaction to it.
before you go to bed.
Adam Boy's just on stage, but like, oh, you guys don't know what's coming, but I do. Oh, you're gonna lose your shit in the next. And he shows off World of Final Fantasy, and everyone's like, we
You
thought.
prick.
And then he's like, he has that Columbo moment, but like, oh, I have one more thing to show you. Boom, and everyone, yeah. Everyone went crazy. It's like
Pants
it
drop.
was like the England match where like fucking pints going everywhere in the pub, going crazy. Avengers music is playing somewhere. Yeah, it was great. It was great. I don't have a whole lot else to say. I don't think, just aside from that final cutscene, everything looked incredible. Like, just the way that individuals, like Barrett's coat would like ruffle in the wind, or the thread, the rope tying Aerith's dress kind of blows in the wind, or when Tifa's walking, her skirt bounces off her legs. Just that sort of stuff. It just looks really realistic. It's the way that clothes move
It's
in
natural.
reality.
Yeah.
It's natural. It's natural, and it's just I was just sitting like, I think Louise was like, Kev, shut the fuck up. I know it looks good, but come on. But I was just kind of like, look how good they all look. Look how good everything looks.
I say that's because you were like, look at the skirt and Tifa, look at how that moves. And she's like, Kev, shut the fuck up.
I was just like, look how amazing everything looks. It was just like, this is
Yeah.
insane. Apart from Cloud's hair. Cloud's hair doesn't move. He uses that
Well, it's all that gel, yeah.
He uses Gorilla Glue in his hair.
Gorilla. I mean, he did it once and that's it now. He doesn't have to change it again.
Yeah, no, it looked insane. It really did. My friend actually that visited you today with his dog Husky. He got the free download of it when it was free for the month or whatever, and he's playing through it. He's not far into it, but he's kind of like, this was a great recommendation. I can't believe I didn't listen to you earlier on this game. Like, I told you, it's amazing. That's just the remake, by the way. He'd never played them, or it.
Really?
He never played it, so
Wow.
he's following it. So yeah,
Jesus.
we really are
for
getting to
free.
a point that video game characters in general, but games in general, are just looking too realistic. That they've almost. I think I said it last week. It was especially noticeable in the is it Stalker 2? No.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in that trailer, like the backgrounds are so polished that it's almost like it's hyper. It's over. It's gone past the point of looking great where my brain goes, no, this can't be real. It looks too good to be real.
It's called the uncanny valley.
Yeah.
It's the point where it looks too real, but
That
your brain goes, this
your brain
isn't
kind
real.
of goes, this can't be possible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like real life isn't this good.
Yeah, exactly.
Something
Because if I'm looking at my PC screens, for instance, now I can't see I can see it, but it's blurry in my peripherals. But in that Stalker trailer, you're looking at the character in front, and everything in the background is so crystal clear. And it's the same. It's probably going to be similar by the time Part 3 comes out. It'll be quite similar. So like, it looks too good. Make it look less good. Yeah, it's a good complaint.
I can't wait for it. Yeah, I can't wait for everyone to complain about Tifa's boob size again or something. They reduced them again. Like, come on, guys, get over it.
Yeah, it's.
We all know Jessie's the real waifu.
It's the internet. It's the internet.
Mm-hmm. But yeah.
That's actually something I did actually want to say that. If a new timeline is indeed where we're at, or if Zack is not in Cloud's timeline, or Yuffie is not, if there's a timey-wimey shit going on, it's potentially possible that the 3 from Avalanche are still alive and we will be working with them in some form. In a different timeline. Jesse, Wedge, and yeah.
I reckon if they go with Zack is in the past, then we will get more of the, what do they call them? The Splinter Cell.
Yeah, the Splinter Cell
crews. So
it's kind of on the nose considering the release date of the game.
Yeah. So I reckon, if there's a past version of Zack in the mix, then we probably will get it there. But otherwise, unfortunately, I think they kill their way too.
I think what is potentially possible is that we have Zack, we have the Splinter Cell, Aerith will appear to survive, and we'll all think this is all great, but then it all has to funnel back into where it's supposed to go, and all these things we think we have that we weren't gonna have, we're gonna lose them somehow. That'll be the consequence of saving it, will be we lose everything that we thought we were getting, that is supposed to be lost. That's my theory.
Yeah.
Long-winded.
Just as you're saying that there, I'm intrigued by the idea that maybe they will give us the ideal scenario where everyone survives, and that'll be our main game. But we actually lose. Like, we die to Sephiroth because the things that we needed, like, there's a lot of dialogue in the last phase of the original where it's about Aerith spurring them on. It's about her being able to activate Holy and the live stream, and like not having all those things in place to fight Sephiroth and ultimately losing, to then bring back in, it's like, hey, this is where the timeline should be, and this is how we're going to rectify it. So all these things that you're like, this isn't right, that shouldn't be there. You're actually going to go back and rectify those now, and you're now going to be the anomaly in that timeline. You're now, maybe Zack is a timeline enforcer of some sort, and you're going to go back and make sure these things happen the way they should. That would be a really cool way to like bait and switch and go, hey, you got everything you want, but guess what? You fucked up. So now go back and do what we told you to do 20-something years ago. Plebs.
I do think that is potential. I think they will do something new, but it will come back to, well, no, because you can't change destiny. Or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, like I could see it being that
they're gonna Infinity War us. They're gonna reverse Infinity War us. It's, here's what you think, you got everything. No you didn't. Snap, you lost everything.
Yeah. It could easily be a case where
reverse Infinity War.
It's Final Destination. It's like you might save one person, but it jumps to the next, and it's like you've lost that person now.
Because especially considering Barrett died at the end of Remake, but then didn't die because
Oh
the
yeah.
yeah. So
I need to go play all that again because there's a lot of shit that
see,
happens in
I've
it.
played through it 2.5 times, so it's
Yeah.
all in my brain because that platinum takes 2.5 playthroughs or multiple saves, which I also did, but it still takes 2.5 playthroughs because
Yeah, I'm not doing those 9 dresses.
you've got to get the all the dresses. Oh my god, the
Yeah,
dresses! You got to get
I
the
ain't doing that.
dresses and the resolutions, so you get the cutscene with either Barrett, Tifa, or
Oh yeah.
Eric. My lord, yeah.
Yeah.
That it's something just to touch on Ratchet and Clank. It's something I really appreciate about Ratchet and Clank. You can get the platinum from from one playthrough plus about 20 minutes of a new playthrough, and you have a platinum. So
Sweet.
you can get, I think there's 47 trophies, so 46 trophies plus the platinum. You can get 45 out of 46 trophies from one playthrough just by playing the game, collect everything, upgrade your weapons, buy all the weapons, and then from a new game plus playthrough, when you first get to the weapon vendor, Miss Zircon, she sells you the final weapon to get the final trophy. So you literally only have to play a full game to get the platinum, and I think that's the way fucking games should be. Fuck this nonsense of 4 playthroughs or uploading fucking saves to a USB stick. Fucking Bloodborne.
I'll do you one better. Near Automata. Complete the game. They have a trophies vendor that you use in-game currency to just buy the trophies.
No, I don't like that. I like achievements. I like to achieve something, but I don't like it when it's like you've got to play this game 4 times.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get that.
I think
So,
a platinum trophy should be for 100%ing the game and mastering certain things within the game.
yeah.
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 So, have we anything else to touch
No, I
on
think
spoiler wise?
that's probably it really. That was Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade plus Intermission. Um, I loved it. Stephen loved it. Can't wait for part two. I really hope it's not 2023. I hope it's next year, but I'm not hopeful about that.
There's a PlayStation State of Play this month, isn't there? Supposedly.
There's rumored to be one in 10 days' time, and
So I
they
hope
haven't
we get
announced anything
something.
yet.
If this is their E3
Uh,
alike situation, I really hope we get, even if it's just a little bit of like,
I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna have a ballsy prediction here.
go
It's
for
gonna
it.
be announced at the Game Awards, opening night of the Game Awards at the end of the year. Jeff Keighley will manage to nab himself part two for that. The same way he nabbed Elden Ring,
Yeah.
and if Sony are smart, they will give him something because everyone loves Jeff Keighley.
Mhm.
Everyone loves. By the way, actually, just to come back, I shot. Do you know the guy who makes It Takes Two, A Way Out? That crazy
Yeah.
guy is like, fuck the Oscars, man, fuck the Oscars. Dylan had never seen that clip until today, and he was getting a PS5. I showed him that, and he was in stitches laughing because he played It Takes Two with Kathy. But
Okay.
yeah, that guy is a lunatic. I love him.
Yeah.
But yeah, just coming back because no, I just reminded because Jeff Keighley's standing there, and like, oh, I'm in so much trouble. But yeah, I'm gonna make a balls doing that. Part two might get a reveal at the Game Awards. I think a summer state of play is too early for it.
I think that's the real reason. It's too early.
I think it's too early for it to be announced because people will get hyped as
Mm.
fuck when that gets announced. And it's also INTERgrade INTERmission isn't out that long. It's only out about 4 weeks now, if
It'll be a
even.
month.
Yeah, it's not out that long. So I think a summer state of play might be a bit early to announce it. Unless they were using Intermission to build a bit of hype into an announcement, but I think it might be later on in the year. or potentially, depending on when it's gonna come out, it could even be next year at Sony's E3, whatever they decide to do for their E3 next year.
Or like what they did this year, a February state of play, just randomly throw it in there.
Potential, I think.
See.
Look, we don't know where the development's at. Obviously, we're not privy to those conversations. Sooner the better, though.
Yep.
There's a bit of a dry patch now over the next while. New launches.
Yeah,
I'll work off
a few games.
I'll work off Dylan's list. He did up a list. That's usually what I usually do those lists for myself. So for someone to do a list of potential games for me is nice. But yeah, I've nothing else to say on Intermission apart from I really enjoyed it and I can't wait for what's coming next.
Same. Yeah, I think I'll do a full playthrough at some stage soon.
I don't know if I could do a full playthrough. I might skip the side mission chapters and just play the main chapters. Yeah.
But no, go play if you haven't.
Would recommend. Would definitely recommend. Thanks for doing this anyway. I know this was something I wanted to do. I wanted to have a proper chat about it. We can continue to have our chat about those cutscenes if you want in text.
Well,
I've been holding it in
after this about what hasn't happened last Friday. I feel abandoned by what hasn't happened.
I'm confused.
Did anything happen about Abandoned?
Oh, no, nothing happened about Abandoned.
Yeah. They abandoned the idea of...
Yeah, that got... The app got pushed to August. Happened. He put up a video. So, Hassan Kojima, Karaman, put up a video on Twitter basically saying that the team is very stressed. They want the app to land well, and they've pushed it back to August. Take what you will from it.
It's 100% an indie game, and they have fucked themselves royally.
Oh yeah, he's. Yeah. I believe he's in over his head on this. So hopefully not. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I believe that's the case. Anyway, if you've listened to this one, thank you. It went on a bit longer, as always. But I enjoyed talking about Final Fantasy Intermission. I felt the same way after finishing as I did last year. I was like, I've been looking forward to this, and now I'm at a loose end because I'm finished. But it was good to have Ratchet and Clank, but now I'm finished that too. So look at me completing games. Isn't it amazing?
I know, Jesus, that backlog.
I know.
It's going.
It is. I need to start playing games on this new TV properly. I want to check the base of it to make sure it's on properly. I'm unsure if it's screwed in 100% the actual base of it, so I need to check it. But yeah, thank you for joining, Stephen. You're gonna sign us out because I did it last Thursday. And then it's Dylan's turn on this week. Get wrecked.
Whether he likes it or not. Yeah. This has been our discussion that we've wanted to do on Final Fantasy VII INTERgrade INTERmission. We both enjoyed it. We both will probably continue talking about it for the next few months anyway. Yeah.
Before we go, Stephen here is currently streaming himself playing some Returnal on Twitch. That's at twitch.tv/Dr. Average Gaming. I know he won't plug himself, so I'm going to do it for him. Go watch him. Let's support him and get him to affiliate on Twitch so that he can actually get some subs for playing it. He's a much better gamer than he gives himself credit for. He beat the first two bosses on Returnal without a death. So I think that takes some... you should take some credit for that. So go check that out. I'll put the link in the description. It's twitch.tv/Dr. Average Gaming. You're welcome, Stephen.
Thanks for the plug. Completely unnecessary.
Also, Returnal looks phenomenal. Like, I want to play it now.
It really does. Get Returnal.
We'll talk about it Thursday. Shut up.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, and you'll hear us again on Friday. We hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.